we were discussing about the Kanban part. That is what generally, if you remember, the major difference between Scrum and XP was explained in the previous session.
Right.
You take Scrum project as a example, wherein you will be having a product backlog, you will be having sprints, right? All that stuff will be there. At the same time, you'll be having user stories, all that stuff. But whereas when you see the difference between Scrum to XP, Scrum to Kanban, Kanban is completely an pull and push mechanism kind of stuff, where the Kanban is completely about where whatever the user stories or whatever the functionalities you would like to develop, everything will be there on the Kanban board directly. Means whatever the work we have created so far, all these works and all everything can be seen in this Kanban board. Where is this Kanban board? If we see here closely, where so there are different,
So it is majorly like Kanban is last time as we discussed is majorly like development. We don't need as such as a Scrum Masters or anything. It is majorly a development team which decides, right, what story to be taken from the backlog and all that.
Yes.
Correct?
Okay. Yes. The complete part will be taken care of by the Kanban team. Development team will be there. So the development team itself will be taking care of all that. It's not something done by.
So there is no product or there is no product owner or anything who will be like.
There is no product owner as such in Kanban. The development team itself will take care of every activity.
So then development team will develop and then testing will done, and then who will close the story?
Everything. See, it's development team. It's not something like coding team, right? Development team is combination of everyone in that.
Right? Okay, got it. So the development team is basically a combination of a developer, a business person.
Everyone.
I was been assuming that development team is just for a developer.
No.
Okay.
Because the same thing you see in Scrum also, right? Because in Scrum team, if you talk about Scrum team is a combination of everyone, right?
Correct, but at least in a Scrum team we define like he is a product owner, he is this. So here instead of it's calling as a Scrum team, it calls as a development team.
Yeah, normally there is the fundamental difference if you see from both the sides is, especially in Scrum team, or sometimes we call it as a development team, which is as separate. They are completely implementation, testing, all that. Next, you will be having product owner as separate.
Actually, your voice is little bit breaking. No, like.
Am I audible now? Clear?
If you can, I don't know, like its volume is coming very less actually as such.
How about now?
Yeah, better. Okay.
See, what normally in Scrum, what is that we do is we'll be having a product owner as separate, development team as separate, development team combination of everyone. What I'm saying is, at the same time, you will be having a Scrum Master as separate. Scrum Master is the person who will be taking care of all the reports, everything, right? So usually Scrum Master does all that stuff. But whereas when it comes to the Kanban board, you don't see any product owner or a Scrum Master roles as separate. There will be only one team. We call it as development team. The development team itself will be taking care of everything. Understood? Clear?
But in the development team, there will be a different person who will be defining other roles, right?
They will define. They themselves will define all that stuff, right?
Okay, because because one will be a business side, one will be a developer, one will be a testing and all that. So it is again and how many? What is the limit in having in one development team? Like generally in a Scrum team, 7 to 8 people they suggest.
Total come together around 10 members, right? 9 to 10 members will be there.
10 members.
All together.
Okay.
That's how it is. changes. Even in Kanban mode also we'll be seeing the same.
Okay. So what is an advantage of having a Kanban versus a Scrum? Why people went to Kanban?
The major challenge you see from Scrum to Kanban, first major challenge I'll tell you. The first challenge, let me explain you that in a screenshot, but still anyway, the major challenge is changes can be made anytime during the development, especially in Kanban, you could see. But whereas in Scrum, you don't have that facility, because Scrum has a flexibility to make the changes as long as the sprint has not started. We can do changes. We can do as many changes as we can. But once the sprint has started, we don't do the changes.
No,
Right?
I
Because
mean, like it's like if there is some major thing you have to push it, we definitely push that story out of the Scrum, because if it's not
let me
received,
complete.
then
Let me complete.
hmm,
Let me complete my. See the point. The major difference is, especially in reference to the Scrum. Let's say there were 4 user stories we have taken on first sprint. Right? Let's say as an example,
mhm.
because product owner has identified a project objective, a sprint objective. Based on the sprint objective, development team has identified 4 user stories are relevant. They have taken. Now these 4 user stories they are working on. As long as the sprint has not started, team can do as many changes as they can. Once the sprint is started, changes will be difficult. Changes normally we don't agree. We don't allow the changes in between. Understood? Clear? Deepan, right? So normally we don't see any kind of changes in between, because there is no changes as separate, will be done as separate.
Hmm.
Because once the sprint is started, normally we don't do any changes. If there is a situation where we have to make some changes out of it, if there is a situation come across, usually
Hmm.
that is taken care of by the development team. Development team has to take a call on that, right? Whether it is to be accepted or rejected, or do we want to put it in the sprint retrospection and moving on to the next sprint. The decision will be taken by the team itself. That's the reason why sometimes if you see in reports, there will be some user stories which are out of scope. You could see in Scrum. Understood, right? So this is the
Hmm.
difficulty you see in Scrum. But whereas in Kanban, the major advantage in Kanban is that even though it is in a state of progress or it is in a state of testing, if you want, that particular task can be changed at any point in time. So that is what generally the difference you can see here. Understood here? Understood or not, Deepali?
Okay,
Yes or no?
yeah, it's okay. I'll take it as a name, but hmm.
I'm not getting your answer.
No, no,
Do you
I'm
understand?
saying, yeah, I understand that you can change it. It's only I'm thinking like, uh, then in the Scrum also we have not like we do have a little bit flexibility, but just wanted to like maybe it's a different concept as a Scrum versus Kanban, but it's almost like it's a similar thing. Only thing like they made it as a new some version of it like the
Please
Kanban.
let me elaborate. See, either it is Kanban or a Scrum. The principles and value system we follow agile, right? So there is no
Oh,
but the major thing, especially in Scrum, is, for example, you have created a Scrum sprint, for example, right?
mm,
Being a team, will you define the sprint goal or not? First question. Define the sprint goal? Yes or no?
yeah,
Will you define the sprint goal for the particular sprint or not?
yes,
Okay. Now, is the sprint goal must be equivalent to the product owner objective what product owner wants to achieve? Do you agree on this?
Yes.
Okay. Now, third point. By combining all these, if you are a development team, for example, you are in a part of development team, you will be defining the DOD, definition of done. Do you agree on this?
Yeah.
Right. So, what product owner objective wants you to complete on a particular sprint equal to the sprint goal, which is being defined by the development team, equal to the definition of done, what you want to achieve finally on the particular sprint, right? This is what the complete means. This is a continuous thing where you need to see a proper alignment with this.
Okay.
But if you are making any changes on the existing ones, assume that there was a user story, that functionality was already written and you guys have started working on it. Now you are making changes out of it. What will happen? Automatically it will be impacted on the sprint goal. Do you accept it or not?
Yeah.
Being a development team, especially in Scrum, will you be ready to change your sprint goal all the time? Will you be ready?
Hmm. No.
Right? So once the sprint goal is defined, normally being a team, you don't.
Yeah, I think I understood the flexibility we are getting with Kanban.
Okay, so that is what generally we do in Scrum. But whereas in Kanban, you don't have any specific goal as separate.
Hmm.
Okay, because whatever the task we are taking, the task will be taken and it will be moved on to the progress state, from there testing test state, from there to done state. That's how generally the process can be moved in Kanban. Understood? Clear?
Yeah.
Fine. Right? So this is what generally the difference, major difference between Scrum and as well as Kanban majorly focused on, because this is where,
Hmm.
because in Kanban, moreover, Kanban we take up tasks will be taken, whatever the tasks and all, everything will be taken. Understood? Clear?
Hmm.
Understood or not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So right, so what is that we are doing is that now we are creating a task, right? Because we have created the epics, right? In the epics we have created, in the roadmap we have created. Now in this Kanban board, you can see everything is in their backlog, right? So whatever the epics and all, everything you could see in the backlog. Now there is nothing for selection for development, right? So there is nothing is there for selection of development. So what is that you need to do? First of all, you have to list out the tasks which you want to complete for this particular payment system, right? So here, create, where you have an option here where you are selecting a task, right? Now tell me one task which I have to write for the particular, whichever the epic it could be. We have to list out the tasks. Tell me the task.
Um, create
Let us
create payment API.
sorry,
Create payment API.
payment API, right?
Hmm.
Yes or no? Right. So we have create payment API is what the tasks we have taken. Right. For example, if there is any kind of attachments and relevant to that, if you got anything, you will be added. Otherwise, keep it as it is. Okay. Now, in which epic this will fall into?
Hmm.
In which
Payment
epic this will fall into?
authentication. Payment authentication.
Payment authentication. Now you have to select the label. You have to select the label. So what was this? This is about create payment API, right? So I'm writing down a label for payment
Hmm.
API, right? So these are the two different labels I'm creating. This is for our better understanding we have created. Okay. Now assignee automatic, right? So assignee is automatic. So I have not discussed written anything here. Okay. So this is a task which normally we have created it, right? Now create. Understood, Deepan? Right? So we have
Yes.
created one issue. Now second issue. Tell me one more task. Tell me one more.
One more task. Authentication. Uh, sign in. Authenticate user.
Authenticate
Users profile. User profile.
user profile, right? So authenticate user profile is one more, right? If you have any components, there is no components as such. Priority is medium. Which
Yeah.
epic it falls? Which epic it falls into?
Payment authentication.
Payment authentication, right? Now I'm selecting a label. I'm creating a label for this user profile, right?
Yeah.
User and profile, right? Created. Okay, issue was created. Now tell me a few more.
Verify. Sorry. Not verify. Cross sell product. Um, Login. Cross sell product login.
Sorry,
Cross sell product login.
which epic is falls into?
Cross sell.
Yes, I have created. Next. Anything else apart?
No.
Okay. So these are the three different tasks, right? So three tasks we have taken. One is create payment API. Second is authenticate user profile. Next, cross-sell product login, right? So these are the three different tasks we have taken. Yes or no? So these are the three different tasks we have taken. Now, whatever the task we have identified here, this task, are there any kind of rules are you going to frame for this? Are there any kind of rules you are framing for this creating payment API? Because the rules option will be there, because normally what is that we have to do is that there is an option called rules, right? You have to go to project settings, project settings, where here you have an option called automation. Did you see this, Deepali?
Yeah.
In automation, you have two kind of rules. One is global rules, second is project rules. So we have to frame and we have to plan the project rules first. For any project, there are some project rules which we have to be focused more on. There are some automation rules which are as written here or it says there. Those rules are these. These are the three different rules. What are the rules? The first rule, when all the user story is completed, close the epic. This is the first rule. Second, when an issue is transitioned, then automatically assigned. Right? This is the second rule. Next, when epic is completed, then close all the user stories present. Okay? Understood, Deepali?
Yeah.
Right? So we have to create rules, all that stuff. So there were three rules which was created automatic. Else, anything else apart, if you'd like to create the rules and all based upon the components what we have chosen, so we can select it. For example, when you are talking about the schedule part, where here we have to connect the schedules, all that. For example, this is for a week where we have taken. If you want to run the JQL and all everything, we can run it usually. Otherwise, we don't require to run all that stuff, usually as separate. So the minimum basic rules which was framed here, where you can see all this in select for development, wherein whatever the user stories are we planning to develop, those user stories can be put it on progress state. From progress means you can say application coding or whatever, right? Whatever the thing is. The next testing. Once the testing is completed, so before you are going to deliver it, we are keeping it in the done column. Understood, Deepali? Clear, right?
Yeah.
So, but whereas the same thing, if you see in Scrum, the major difference you see is in Scrum, you don't have a facility to have a Kanban board the way which it looks like. You will be having a Scrum board there, but the Scrum board is completely off the user stories what we have taken, right? The user stories will be there on the Scrum board directly. You don't see any epics or something of that sort. But here, what is that you can see in this Kanban board is that you don't have any backlog as separate. Backlog column was created in the beginning itself. It is auto creation of Kanban board which was created already. So backlog board was created, and whatever the epics we have created on the roadmap will be there on the backlog automatically. Understood? Clear, Deepali?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
So for payment authentication, there were two issues which was created here. You can see there are two different issues we have created for payment authentication. If you want to create any kind of issue as separate, where you have a provision, the provision that you can create an issue. Otherwise, you don't require to create any kind of issue as separate. At the same time, you have a provision where if you want to do any kind of settings in reference to the board itself is concerned, this board settings and all everything can be done, right? So if you want to, because for general there is nothing of its sort. Whereas for the columns, like if you want to add the column or add the status and all everything, the status can be changed here, right? This is how usually it looks like. Backlog. Second is select for development, in progress, testing, followed by done. Okay, now testing. Shall we add deployment as separate or testing done? What is that you're asking? What is that? What is your say? Deepali.
What is what?
So testing, after that I've mentioned it as done. Do you want me to add any column in between?
Generally,
Or,
we do a product review and the demo, and then only we do done.
That's what I'm asking, deployment, right? So review, product review, deployment, all that. I'm asking it. Do you want me to add any column in this?
Yeah, we can add.
Right? So I'm just, so there is no status we are changing. Backlog will be remains as it is seen. Select for development will be as same. In progress will be as same. Testing as separate, done as separate. So where we can have an option called add column, where I'm just mentioning it as deployment in a single sentence. Okay. Understood? Right? Deployment. Where in that, what is that we can do is that if you want to go for board, where you can see deployment as separate. Understood? Clear? Deepan.
Yeah.
So the major difference, if you see here, one more difference in reference to the Scrum. Do you see these kind of facilities are there in Scrum? We don't have the facility.
Yeah, we don't have that adding of a column and as such.
Status, to know about the status of deployment, status of testing, status of progress, you don't see it as separate in Scrum normally, right? We don't see all that stuff because whatever the work we have completed so far, completely we are moved on to in progress, right? To do state, all that. But whereas in Kanban, especially, the advantage here is that whatever we have selected here for development, from there, in progress, testing, deployment, followed by done. This is how generally the columns can be increased. At the same time, if you want to have any kind of settings in terms of the board and all, everything can also be do it. Next, here we have an option called print cards. Right? Cards will be there, Kanban cards. If there is any kind of cards to be printed in reference to the Kanban board itself is concerned, we have an option where we can print cards for the Kanban. Right?
Mm.
Right. So if you want any Kanban board printing cards and all that. So why? Because if you see Kanban, normally what is that we do is this Kanban we normally maintain on a white marker board. Usually, this Kanban board usually maintained on the marker board by the because this Kanban majorly development centric it is. Means development people will use this Kanban more because whatever the tasks they have taken, whatever the amount of work they were initiated so far, and how it is moving further, all that stuff will be decided by the development teams so that we'll be having an option where whatever the cards which was identified or created by us so far based upon the Kanban board, this you can print these cards and whatever the cards we have printed and all everything we can stick it on the board and we can work based on it. Understand? Clear, Deepali? Right? Understood or not?
Yeah.
Right? So this is what generally the difference you can see from Scrum to Kanban. Understand? Right?
Yes.
Next. In reference to the reports, there is an option called cumulative flow diagram. Right? Cumulative flow diagram. This cumulative flow diagram, because normally in Scrum, we see two different diagrams. One is sprint burn down chart, second is velocity. Yes or no? Right? We have different things. One is velocity, burn down chart, and second is velocity in Scrum. But whereas in Kanban, we have an option called cumulative flow diagram, where you can prepare this cumulative flow diagram based upon the work what we have taken. Of course, we have not done anything so far. Based upon the work, whatever we have taken automatically, this cumulative flow diagram will be prepared here. Understood, right? But if you have a DevOps team, for example, your project is a combination of DevOps. DevOps means, right? Development and operations team will also be there.
Mm.
For the DevOps team, there is an option we have called cycle time report. That cycle time report can be created, but make sure if you want to connect to the cycle time report, you need to connect to the CI/CD tools. Whatever the CI/CD tools and all that, right? We have the Jenkins, Kubernetes, Ansible, all that stuff. These tools and all everything we have to connect with in real environment, I'm saying. At the same time, even if you want to see the deployment frequency, the deployment frequency can also be seen in this DevOps environment. Understood, Deepali? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Understood or not?
Yeah.
Right. So this is what generally DevOps environment where you can incorporate here. Means make sure you need to create a DevOps environment as separate. And if you want to prepare any kind of cycle time reports, all that stuff can be prepared. At the same time, issue analysis can also be done, right? So issue analysis, for example, like if you'd like to know about time since issue reports, what we have created, right? So when date of the field, when actually ended or when actually started, right? So these sort of configurations and all everything can be done here. Understood? Clear? Right?
Yeah.
So this is the difference you can see from Scrum to Kanban, especially in reference to the board itself is concerned. This is what the Scrum and Kanban boards will be all about.
Mm.
Clear?
Yeah.
I think you have understood about the difference between Scrum to Kanban. Did you?
Mm. Yeah.
The major thing is that task will be taken, task can be changed at any point in time. At the same time, whatever the reports you see in Kanban and all, everything will be cumulative flow diagrams, all that. There is no sprint review because there is no sprint. So there is no point in conducting sprint chart or something like that. No sprint burn-down charts are separate because we don't have any sprints here. Whatever we have is the task. For the task and all that, the cumulative flow diagrams are being used here. At the same time, one more chart is control chart. You can see, right? So this chart can also be used. This control chart can be used about the predictability, right? Or at the same time, or else if you would like to know about the efficiency, predictability, all that stuff, usually this control chart can be used here. Understood? Clear?
Mm.
Understood?
Yeah.
Because this control chart is more or less something like a velocity chart. Because in Scrum we use velocity report, right? Do you know velocity report?
Yes.
Right. So for what purpose velocity is prepared?
Understand the team's capacity to complete the given period of time, the task to be completed in given period of time, so that we can know like what is a team can take like 40 points, 60 point, uh, like that.
Is that velocity report we'll be doing right from the first sprint itself?
No,
We do once
velocity.
the
Uh,
yeah, go ahead, carry on.
no, at least velocity report is generated after one or two sprint to know the how
Right.
the team is been performing, or like how the team is been taking up the task and completing it.
Right. So velocity report normally why are we doing? For example, there were 4 months release. 4 months release. How many weeks? 4 months means 16 weeks, right? Assume that there were two sprints we have completed. Each and every sprint consists of 2 weeks. 4 weeks done. And whatever in terms of user stories, I'm saying this not on story points. For example, there were 4 user stories in first sprint and 4 in second, total 8. Out of 8, they have completed only 5. The balance was 3, right? So on average, in those 2 sprints, how many user stories completed? 2.5 user stories completed. Yes or no?
Mm.
Right? On an average, if you have taken 2.5 user stories was completed. Whenever you are planning, unless until if you don't do the velocity, how many weeks we have? 16. 16 minus 4, we hardly have only 12 weeks. Within the 12
Mm.
weeks time, whatever the leftover user stories or the story points, what is that we have decided, plus balance user stories, whichever is not completed in the first and second sprints, all this has to be completed within the stipulated time of the release plan, what we have planned. In order to know about the predictability, this velocity reports and all, everything will be created. Agreed? Yes, sir. Right? The same
Mm.
way, when you talk about the Kanban, in these reports, we have a provision where we have an option called control charts. In this control chart, we could see the kind of predictability, means we can predict what could be the possibility of the success rate in reference to the completion of the work, what is being taken by the team at the same time. We will be knowing about the efficiency of the work, followed by the improvements what people have taken. At the same time, visibility of the work, which you could see in coming future days. So these aspects can be taken and this can be seen using this control chart. This is how generally the difference you can see from cumulative flow diagram to control, because cumulative flow diagram more or less something like a sprint burndown chart in Scrum, whereas velocity report more or less something like a control chart, more or less something like a velocity report in Scrum. This is how generally the differences you can see between these two. Understood? Clear?
Yeah.
Deepal?
Yes.
So the remaining things anyway, of course, you know all these things. So that's a different thing altogether. So this is how generally the difference you can see from Scrum to Kanban.
What is the remaining thing you said? Can you scroll down?
Remaining things is story mapping, all that stuff.
Okay.
Retrospective,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Confluence pages, because confluence pages also can be created.
Yeah.
For this
Yeah.
particular, if you want, you can create confluence page, or else anyway,
Yeah.
sprint kind of stuff, retrospection related. We don't call it a sprint retrospection, but generally respond to retrospective meeting wherein to know about what to stop, right? What to
Yeah.
continue, right? What actions to be taken into an account.
Right.
All
Right. Yeah.
can be done.
Yeah.
Next, story mapping. Story mapping also, right? User story mapping also can be done. Depends on the user stories and all, everything. How you are going to do the story mapping and all can also be
Yeah.
done in this. This one. Of course, the story mapping you can do it even in Scrum also. We do story mapping in Scrum as well, because it's not something confined only to Kanban and this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We
whatever I
move
was
the story
explaining you,
across. Yeah.
yes, right. So how this particular user story has been mapped with other functionalities, because
Mm.
whatever the functionalities in form of user stories we have written, everything was interconnected. Everything was interconnected. So when there is an
Mm.
interconnection of the user stories happens, that's how generally that whole thing consider it as an application or a solution. So that user story mapping and all, everything has to be sure. We have to see how the user story mapping should be done so far in reference to the particular Kanbans or whatever we have can be seen on this thing. Understood? Clear? Dipal?
Yes. Yes.
At the same time, this layout anyway, of course, this layout can be prepared, because this is as same as it is, because but make sure if you want to connect this user story mapping and all, you have to connect other tools, because you don't see directly here. You have to connect other tools here, then only you can see. Because I have connected a tool, right? Easy Agile user story maps related tool I have connected to my JIRA board. That's the reason why you can see all the story mappings, all that stuff.
Okay.
Understood? Clear? This is all about the difference of Scrum and then on that. Any questions on this?
No.
Right? So